Hi, today we're going to talk about paper and where to start writing on paper, what lines to use, how to follow the lines. So I'm going to start. I have two different types of paper. The first paper that I want to show you is what I'm going to call handwriting paper. This paper has blue and red lines, and it has a broken blue line down the middle. This would be handwriting paper. In our classroom, this is the paper that we use when we are taking a spelling assessment. This is the paper that we use when we are writing a report or when we're practicing handwriting at all. And the reason we do that is because these lines help us know where to stay. Now let's look at this top section here. This part of the paper should always go to the top of the clipboard or to the top of the table where you're writing, okay? That is called the margin. The margin. It needs to be at the top. The first thing that I ask friends to do when they are writing on lined paper like this is to take their thumb and make a space here. Let's see if I can see it. There we are. Make up the thumb space, and then right at that thumb space is where they want to begin writing their name on the top line. So you should have your name on one side, then make a hand space in the middle, and on the other side should be your calendar date. So today is October 27th, 2020. Those things need to be on the top line of your paper, always, whether you're using the handwriting paper or whether you're using loose leaf paper. Let's look at loose leaf paper for a moment. Loose leaf paper has this is what is called loose leaf paper. It's also lined paper. It has 3 holes running down the side and a red line. Please make sure that that red line is on the right side. Let me show you. The right side happens to be the left side of your paper. So you need to have the red line and those holes on the left side of your paper. And just like the other, your name goes at the top. Mrs. Gainey, you didn't make a thumb space on your top line. Friends, do you see that the red line makes the margin for me on the loose leaf paper? But there is nothing to make the margin for me on the handwriting paper. So I'm using my thumbprint. Here, again, I'm making a hand space, and then I'm starting my date. If you start your date too close to the edge of the paper, you may have noticed that you will run out of room for the date. I often see friends who have got their numbers running down the side of the page, and we don't want to do that. So we want to make sure that we have good spacing here at the top. Now, the next thing we're going to talk about is if we are numbering our page, okay? If we're numbering our page. So for a spelling assessment, we always have 8 words that we practice. No matter how many words are in the box, we practice by doing a spelling assessment on 8. And you never know which of the 8 it might be that we're doing an assessment on. Mrs. Gainey just draws them out of the box. So you need to make sure that you're just understanding. Mom or Nana, whoever is giving you assessment, is just drawing 8 words out, and they could be any of the 8. If for some reason your box only had 6 words, then maybe they may take 2 words from last week's list. That's up to them. It's always good practice to do that. So let's take a look. Where you see my name, I want you to skip the first line and your number is going to go directly below that. So, same thing holds true. I'm wanting a thumb space and then a number 1. When you're numbering on your paper, please follow the number with a period. Do you see my period? That lets us know that this is a number for a word or for a math problem. Then we don't confuse and think that this number is part of the math problem or part of the time or whatever it is that you're writing. As you continue down, find the number above and write directly below it so that you have a nice running line of numbers. Mrs. Gainey should be able to take a ruler and line a ruler up near your column of numbers because you're always looking at the number on top to line your next numbers up below it. Okay? All right. Now, after the period, what should you do? Anytime you see a period, whether it's at the end of a number like this, that where you've numbered your page, or maybe it's even at the end of a sentence, I want you to leave a meatball space. Remember how we've talked about spaghetti and meatballs? You need to be able to put a spaghetti noodle between your letters or numbers if you're writing in print with your letters. If you are writing in cursive, your letters are completely attached, but your words need to have a meatball space between them, okay? That's the way this works. Now, I'm going to put a good measure for your paper when you're thinking about that meatball is your fingertip. I'm going to put my fingertip after the period on number 1, and now I'm going to write the first word, and I'm going to show it to you in just a moment. I have to write it first, okay? Now I've written the word clap. Is the word clap too close or too far? Do you see that it's a little too far? So Mrs. Gainey is going to take her eraser. Mrs. Gainey really prefers gum erasers. These white erasers do a good job of erasing. Sometimes our pencil eraser does not do quite as good of a job. Okay, I'm going to write it again. Clap. Let's see what you think about this one. Yes. See that there's a nice space after the number 1, and then do you see that I can put a spaghetti noodle between each of my letters? Now, I'm going to write a sentence next to number 2. And I'm going to write it in cursive. So my friends who are writing in cursive will see what that looks like. The cat ran away. Okay, here's my sentence. I have the same spacing after the period and the number 2. And then my word, the, see my meatball space here? Cat, space, ran, space, away. And then I have followed my sentence with a period. If you're using the loose leaf paper, and you are doing this, Mrs. Gainey often has her students, we skip the first line, and then our number and our period go just before the red line. This is the margin of your paper, just like this is the margin of your paper. So just before the red line is your number and your period. So let's say that we're doing some math work today, and our equation is 8 minus 5 equals. We can make our equation look just like this on the line. 8 minus 5 equals. See how the number 1 is very specifically off to the side, and we don't get confused and think that the number 1 is part of our math equation at all. So what is 8 minus 5? If you said 3, then you are correct. 8 minus 5 equals 3. Number 2, let's look at a different type of equation. Maybe we have something that's in the hundreds. 433 minus 210. And we put a line under it to say equals. So this is another way we can write equations. When we write an equation in this way, we can line them up with our order of operation right here. So we have our minuend on top, we have our subtrahend, then we have our line underneath that's saying equals. As we do the subtraction here and as we get our answer, maybe we're using the small bead frame to do that. If you were using the small bead frame to get the sum for this equation, then as you get those numbers, you fill them in under your equation. Now, your next problem number 3, needs to skip a line. Friends, if you don't skip a line between the problems, the numbers all begin to run together, and it becomes very challenging for your parent, for Mrs. Gainey, even for you to recognize which number goes where. So by skipping a line, we make sure that we have given space, and then we can do our next equation. Now let's look at this. We have a large piece of paper, and we only have so much room down the side. What can we do when we fill up the side of the paper? Well, you have a couple of options. Mrs. Gainey is going to show you her first choice. This is only a good choice if you have small, short problems like this, or a list of only words like clap, not sentences. What you can do in this instance is you take your paper and from corner to corner, you fold your paper. You match up the corners and then you fold it right down the center. Friends, when you do this, you kind of make a new line. Do you see the line down the middle of the page? Well, you're going to clip that paper back on the clipboard. Let's take a look at it. See the paper here? And now you can move on. Let's say that our next number was going to be number 9. That we filled up this side all the way through 8. Do you see that I put my 9 with the period just past the fold? And then I will put my problems right down the side. If you aren't sure if you got it right in the middle when you were folding your paper, that is perfectly okay as well. You just want to make sure that you have a neat column. And that's one way that we can do the column on our papers. So today we have reviewed the margin of the paper, writing our name and our date, where those things belong on the paper, our numbering down the side of our paper, our spacing. Don't forget your spaghetti and meatballs. Spaghetti is important. It's a good way to remember. Even when you're writing numbers, you want to have that space between the numbers so that they can be read. But if your space is too large between your numbers, then people believe that they're completely separate numbers. So this is going to take some practice. Today, I would like you to write your spelling list on a piece of lined paper. It can be handwriting paper like this. It can be loose leaf paper or notebook paper, but I would like you to be numbered down the side. I would like to see the spacing between your letters if you're writing in print. If you're writing in cursive, I want to make sure also that I see the spacing between the period following your number and your word. Also, I want you to do one of your math cards. Doing your math every day is very important. It's an important part of being in the second grade, and you are in the second grade. You do a math card every day, and as you do them, I'd like to see your problems lined up along the margin, numbered. If there are 3 problems on your math card, then think about that. They should be numbered 1, 2, and 3. Write your problems. Then write the sum at the bottom. This will help Mrs. Gainey to know that you have understood this lesson, and it will help you to have the practice. Friends, the way we practice is the way we do things. So we always want to practice our handwriting. We want to practice using our margins. We want to practice using paper the way that it was intended to be used, so that we just begin doing it without even thinking about it. Okay, if you have any questions, then you can talk to me about that on our Zoom. I will review this again later, but I appreciate you getting started with it today.